Hi everyone! Welcome to your Week 11 Wake-Up Call in Humanities 103, Mythology. All right, here's the week's lineup. So last week you got a big dose of lots of theory, scholarly theory regarding the analysis of the heroic character. So this week we're going to put some of that to the test. We're going to be focusing on one really famous character, heroic character in literature, and that's Odysseus. So to get you prepared to really get the full benefit of Odysseus's character, there are a few things you need to watch and read here. The first is an article that describes what an epic is, or really it's an epic poem. And some of our most famous pieces of classic literature are written in this particular form. So please read that. All you have to do is just read the definition, the characteristics of the epic, and then some examples. The second one is a video that gives you an overview of the Odyssey, which is the book by the poet Homer that really zeroes in on Odysseus and tells us all these adventures that he has. Continuing on in that vein, I'd like you to read the introduction to the Odyssey. It's a long article, but you only have to read the introduction, the summary, the major themes, and the major characters. And by that time, you are going to be perfectly situated to actually dive into the Odyssey. You know, I know some of you have probably already read it, or maybe read some sections of it, maybe even in high school. We're only going to read chapters 5 and 6. Which just give you a good sense of his character. There's a couple things I want you to look at. Look at Odysseus himself, all of his heroic characteristics, which are, some of them are really great and some of them are drastically flawed. So when we're talking about heroes, we're not talking about, like Superman or somebody who's just like purely good and doing good in the world. These are people, oftentimes half human, half mortal, who do a lot of really terrible things. But they also do a lot of great things. So that's the complexity of their characters. So I want you to think about how complex his character is. I also want you to pay attention to how deeply interwoven the gods and goddesses of the Greek pantheon are woven into this story. They're just everywhere, and it's really interesting to see how the Greeks conceptualized the daily lives of normal people and their heroes as just continually influenced and guided by all of these deities. There's an article on how to do a character analysis, so please read that carefully, and then you have a discussion that is due on Sunday. I was looking around for a picture of Odysseus or something from the Odyssey, and I actually found this article that I think some of you will really like. You're not required to read it, but I know some of you will click on that link right up there. It's called Odysseus the Jerk. Now, the thing about Odysseus is he doesn't just show up in the Odyssey. He actually first shows up in the Iliad toward the end, part of the really epic battles involved in Troy. And Odysseus is actually credited with coming up with the idea of the Trojan horse. So keep that in mind. And then, probably because he was such a popular character, Homer gave us the sequel to the Iliad, which is the Odyssey. And then Odysseus gets his own book, his own epic poem. So anyway, that's a link to a pretty short article that I think you might actually really enjoy. Here is your discussion post for this week. It's due on Sunday. There is no peer response requirement, so you have all week to work on this. It's a two-parter, and I want you to think about the heroic character of Odysseus. And I want you to think about how scholars have really thought about this character and how we can make sense of it. So we're going to be looking at some scholarly theories about how to analyze the character of the hero in literature. Part one has to do with the character analysis. So make sure that you read that article, How to Do a Character Analysis. And the article lists 5 things that we can think about when we're looking at a character. We're just going to look at 4 of them. And they are motivation, actions, voice, and descriptions. Now, when you write this section, please think about how to format this so that it's very clear. So use those 4 words, maybe even a bulleted list, and go through them. And I want you to go back into the text of the Odyssey and find clues to Odysseus's personality in each of these 4 areas. So for each of those, you're going to find one event or situation in either chapters 5 or 6 of the Odyssey, and use it as evidence to show what Odysseus is like in each of those 4 areas. So for each of those 4, I want you to choose at least one quote from the text, and then I want you in parentheses to put the chapter number and the line number, where that's found, and then I want you to describe why that situation shows what Odysseus is like. Okay, got that? So that's the first part. Part 2 now asks you to go back into your readings and choose one of those theories. Now, you have a very full toolbox of scholarly theories in regards to analyzing mythology. You can go all the way back to week 2 when you had lots and lots of readings. You can look at last week's readings. I just want you to choose one, and I want you to apply that theory to the character of Odysseus. So I've given you an example. Remember, Levi Strauss's structuralist approach looks at cultures and thinks about how they deal with conflict. So remember, he had that whole chart that had all the different binary oppositions. So the inherent conflicts that somebody or a character would feel. So if you decided to do Levi Strauss's structuralist approach, you would look at which binary oppositions that you see Odysseus grappling with, and you would indicate which ones those are, and then you would explain how they apply to his character, and then show where they occur in the text. That's just an example. You have lots and lots to choose from. Okay, so you have several videos to watch this week, you have several articles to read, and you have a pretty in-depth discussion post to post by the end of the day on Sunday. So remember, if you have any questions about this, be sure and post them in the Ask the Instructor discussion post. Office hours on Tuesday between 10 and 12, and I'll post the link to that when I post this announcement. So have a great week and enjoy reading about Odysseus.